Hey folks, Matthew Weiss here. Today we're going to be talking about how to mix vocals to a 2-track instrumental. Alright, this is a topic that will come up again and again and again in your mixing career. It's a difficult thing to handle because a lot of the times we're codependent on however the beat was mixed. And so we can certainly get into a deep dive, but I want to teach you the overarching principle that's going to help you the most. Now, if you've ever tried doing this, one of the first things that you may have thought to do was to carve out some frequency ranges to allow for the beat to make room for the vocal. And that's a really good instinct. But there might be a problem with that. And I'm going to demonstrate this idea using white noise. So I'm going to play this vocal here.
Something not the rabbit had, yes, man. I done suffered the pain, man, putting work in this game, and you won't putting dirt on my name.
And I'm going to make this really annoying by injecting white noise over it.
Something not the rabbit had, yes, man. I done suffered the pain, man, putting work in this game, and you won't putting dirt on my name. Yeah, they smile in your face, man, behind your back they a snake. Oh, hating, then you know they some lames,
So you can hear that by carving out some key frequency ranges, I can certainly allow for some space for the vocal to poke above the white noise, right? However, the problem with this is when we see how much of the range we need to carve out, it ends up being the low mids, the upper mids, and some of the treble. In fact, anything can be masking the vocal if there's too much of it. And so we're going to end up doing a lot of carving in order to allow for the vocal to sit within the sound itself. And that's going to be true of 2-track beats as much as it's true for white noise. What's going to end up happening, and what you've probably experienced, is that the end result is something where the vocal fits in it, but it kind of feels a little bit lifeless. The reason is because if we examine what's really going on, we realize that the problem that we're usually facing when we have a 2-track beat is that the mix is already very compressed. The instrumental has been beefed up to sound really loud on playback because this oftentimes helps the instrumental sell. But when the artist receives it, there's now no longer any room for the vocal to be inside the beat. So we end up hitting this zone where our vocal is either above the beat, sitting on top of it like it's a plate and the vocal is the dinner, or it ends up sitting underneath the beat where it's like a blanket on top of the vocal. But it never feels like the vocal is strong and proud, but still inside and glued to the beat. Now, let me go back to this white noise, for example, for a second, and I'm going to bypass my EQ, and this time I'm going to turn on a dynamic shaping device, LFO tool. Check this out now.
Something not the rabbit had, yes, man. I done suffered the pain, man, putting work in this game, and you won't putting dirt on my name. Yeah, they smile in your face, man, behind you.
So even without the vocal being treated at all, even without any EQ being applied to the white noise to make room for it, by giving it a dynamic shape and opening things up dynamically, suddenly we have room for the vocal. And that makes perfect sense, right? If the problem with the instrumental track is that everything is being jammed up in level, it's all compressed and squeezed to the top of our possible space, what we need to do is undo that process. So I'm going to now play the vocal with the beat, and we're going to discuss that, and I'm going to demonstrate how this idea applies to a 2-track.
Something not the rabbit had, yes, man. I done suffered the pain, man, putting work in this game, and you won't putting dirt on my name. Yeah, they smile in your face, man, behind your back they a snake. Oh, hating.
Also, I happen to love this beat. I think it's really cool. This beat is well mixed. However, it is very heavily compressed, so this is definitely a better starting point than what we oftentimes have to deal with. However, we are going to face that problem where in order to make the beat really big and really proud sounding, we do end up kind of covering up the vocal, and you can kind of hear that. So the way that we do this is we grab a Transient Designer. A Transient Designer is kind of like the opposite of a compressor. A compressor is going to squeeze our, well, really it's the opposite of a limiter. A compressor is going to squeeze our levels together so that our dynamic range is less, it's compressed. A Transient Designer is going to find the peaks of our sounds, like our kicks and our snares, and it's actually going to enhance those and give us more dynamic range. So we can get the kick and the snare to step out in front, get the hi-hats to step out in front, and then seat the vocal behind the kick and the snare and the hats, all of those percussive elements, elements, but still in front of all of the music bed elements. This is super effective for hip hop, R&B, pop, whatever you happen to be working on. The idea stays pretty much the same. Now, I'm going to do this with broadband transient designing, and that would sound like this.
Something out the rabbit hat, yes, man. I just suffered the pain, man. Putting work in this game, and you won't putting dirt on my name.
So before, then after.
Something out the rabbit hat, yes, man. I just suffered the pain, man. Putting work in this game, and you won't putting dirt on.
After.
Something out the rabbit hat, yes, man. I just suffered the pain, man. Putting work in this game, and you won't putting dirt on my name. Yeah, they smile in your face, man, behind your back.
Not bad, right? We get the kick and the snare to step out into the front, get the hat to step out into the front, and suddenly we have a space for the vocal to live. Now, this is not perfect because the snare is already pretty strong in this mix. So a way to kind of make this better is to use a transient designer that has multi-band capabilities, meaning we can parse out certain frequency ranges and affect them differently. So if I go to this previous instance of Neutron that I already preset up here, what we have is 3 bands. We have a top band, a middle band, and a low band. And what I want to really do is bring out the smack of the kick, because that's what really needs the most punch. And that's going to be pretty common because low end tends to eat up the most room. That tends to be the first thing to go when we start compressing a record. So we're going to find that pretty frequently when we have an overcompressed instrumental, it's the kick that's really suffering and losing out. So I've got most of the transient designer hitting the kick drum, pushing that up, and then I'm giving a little bit of body to the snare. The snare is like, it's one of those trap snares that has a lot of brightness to it, and I like that, but I kind of wish that there was just a little bit more body in there as well, so I'm bringing up the lower part of the snare using this middle band, and then the top band I'm actually leaving completely alone. So here is our before and then after.
Something out the rabbit hat, yes, man. I just suffered the pain, man. Putting work in this game, and you won't putting dirt on my name. Yeah, they smile.
After.
Something out the rabbit hat, yes, man. I just suffered the pain, man. Putting work in this game, and you won't putting dirt on my name. Yeah, they smile in your face, man. Behind your back, they a snake. Oh, hating. Then you know they some lames. You dealing with a new in the game that's worth talking about. I swear to God, all these niggas do is talk.
Nice. Now, if the level of the beat is getting a little bit too loud because we've now pushed the transient up, we can also adjust the final output a little bit to make a little bit more room. So I'm going to take the overall beat down by just a little bit more, and then this is going to give us something that now hits really hard but is also very open. So one more time, before and after.
I had nothing in the rabbit hat, pull something out the rabbit hat, yes, magic. I had nothing in the rabbit hat, pull something out the rabbit hat, yes, magic. I had nothing in the rabbit hat.
And already night and day difference. All we need to do from here is get a nice little EQ curve going on the vocal, and we're pretty much 90% of the way there. So this topic, or this approach, is going to pretty much go over any kind of 2-track situation that you're running into. The first thought should be, can I get the dynamics to work right so that the vocals have a place to live? Then from there, we can start thinking about things like corrective EQ, mid-side processing, all the bells and whistles that I would get into in a full-length tutorial if you join the membership site. So, all right, guys, that'll wrap us up. If you like what I'm doing here on this channel, hit that like button. If you don't like what I'm doing, don't do anything. Just leave the page. There's no reason to give it a thumbs down. That's just being a hater. No reason. And if you want to get more of these videos, hit the subscribe with the bell notification. And if there's anything that you want me to talk about, hit me with a comment in the comment section below. I'll catch you next time.